While the internet is a useful tool for investigators, it can also be somewhat of a hindrance. It can lead to the spread of misinformation or hoaxes taking advantage of publicized cases. But there is good that can come from the online community when it comes to true crime, as these examples will show. Join us for today's episode, as we examine 3 missing person cases solved by the internet. Francine Frost. Francine Frost, a loving wife and mother, was just 44 when she disappeared after going out to a grocery shop on the evening of February 16th, 1981, in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Vicky Curl, Francine's daughter, recalled the day in 1981 when her father phoned and asked if she'd spoken to her mother. Vicky stated, "I said no and asked him why, and he said that she wasn't home and he didn't know where she was." After hanging up, Francine's husband, Malcolm, started driving around the neighborhood looking for any sign of his wife. He found her car abandoned in the car park of Skaggs Alpha Beta, a large supermarket chain at the time. The keys were dangling from the vehicle door, and it seemed very likely that something sinister had happened to Francine. Malcolm subsequently contacted the police, and an investigation was launched. It was estimated that she vanished between 8:30 p.m. and 4 a.m. The family appeared on the news that night, appealing for witnesses, with Vicky saying, "If anybody has seen her at all, we want them to come forward or to call and let anybody know anything about it that they know." It would take 2 years for any news to come. On January 1st, 1983, an anonymous caller contacted the police to let them know that a body had been found near Martin, Oklahoma, 60 miles from where Francine was last seen. The body was recovered on January 5th, but it was unclear who the remains belonged to. They were labeled as those of a Jane Doe, and investigators did not examine the possibility that they may belong to the missing mother, whose family knew nothing of the discovery. Jane Doe's cause of death was established as a gunshot wound to the back of the head. For years, there was no further movement in the case. It wasn't until 2014 that a breakthrough finally came when noted forensic artist Carl Koppelman, who has helped identify the likes of Tammy Alexander, formerly known as the Cali Doe, stumbled across Jane Doe's case in the NamUs database. He noticed the denim skirt and the white girdle listed in the description, and that it was a match to the clothing that Francine had worn when she was last seen. Carl subsequently notified the authorities and posted his hunch to Web Sleuths, where Francine's grandson discovered it as he delved into the mystery of his missing grandmother. The grandson, Corey, contacted the medical examiner for the case and provided DNA. This led authorities to exhume Jane Doe's remains so that her DNA could be taken. She was identified in August of 2016 as Francine Frost. Dental records had helped to seal the match. After 35 years, Francine was finally identified. Her loved ones could finally give her a proper burial and allow themselves to fully grieve. Unfortunately, despite this massive breakthrough, there have been no new leads in the case since, and Francine's murder is still unsolved. Following the identification of her body, Francine's family proposed Francine's Law, a bill that would require agencies in the state of Oklahoma to enter the data of missing persons and unidentified persons into the NamUs system within 30 days of their last contact or discovery, making it easier for comparisons and matches to be made. The bill successfully passed. Anyone with information about Francine Frost's disappearance can contact the Tulsa Police Cold Case Unit at tpdcoldcasehomicide@cityoftulsa.org. Susan Rainwater. On the morning of August 9th, 2018, 63-year-old Susan Rainwater woke up her husband, Al, with a fresh mug of coffee as part of the same routine they'd had for decades. The couple had been married for 30 years and lived in the Eatonville area of Washington state. After kissing Al goodbye, she left the house, planning to take a 30-minute bike ride. But Susan never came home, and Al never saw his wife alive again. As the minutes and hours went by, Al headed out to look for his wife. He found her body in a ditch, her bike in a crumpled heap at the side of the road. She had been riding along Route 70, 60 miles south of Seattle, when she was struck and killed by an unknown driver who promptly fled the scene. With no witnesses, the police had very little to go on. The biggest piece of evidence recovered from the scene was an odd piece of black plastic that was presumed to have broken off the vehicle when it collided with Susan. One of the state troopers who'd responded to the scene posted an image of the hunk of plastic, requesting help in identifying it. Its only feature was a tiny U-shaped notch along one side. Unfortunately, there were no hits from the Twitter crowd, so the following day, a Reddit user reposted the image and information to the subreddit r/whatisthisthing in the hopes that it would lead to a break in the case. That's where user Jeff Nuts entered the picture. He revealed that the hunk of plastic had come from the headlight bezel of a late 1980s Chevrolet pickup truck. He even helpfully posted an image of the car part alongside with his response, stating that the distinctive notch was for accessing the headlamp adjustment screw on such vehicles. User Jeff Nuts had spent a lot of time getting familiar with car headlights as part of his role as a state vehicle inspector, and wrote, "First thought it was a late 1980s Dodge, and just by chance, one of the images of a 1988 Ram truck brought up a link to a 1988 Chevy truck, so I kinda got lucky there." This information was a massive help to investigators, who were able to make an arrest in Susan's case about a week later. They initially combed through surveillance footage, but an anonymous tip would seal the deal. Part of their statement read, "Reddit users identify a photographed broken car part as a mid-1980s Chevy truck headlight assembly. Local anonymous tip confirms and led to the arrest of the driver of a 1986 Chevy K10. The vehicle still bore damage to the front corner from where it had struck the 63-year-old. Susan's killer was named as Jeremy Simon, a 37-year-old from Roy, Washington. He was charged with vehicular homicide, hit and run, resulting in death, and unlawful possession of a controlled substance. He entered a not guilty plea, and his bail was set to $750,000. His lawyer claimed that he'd fallen asleep at the wheel and drifted out of his lane. He had initially thought he'd hit a mailbox, but fled from the scene when he noticed the crumpled bicycle because he didn't want to see a dead body. As for the Reddit user, The Drive reached out to Jeff Nuts, who told them that he'd viewed the post as an intellectual challenge rather than a search for justice, and that he'd thought nothing of typing out his reply before returning to the sports game he was engrossed in. When he checked back later, he discovered his reply was getting a ton of traction amongst the community, with a friend of Susan's family reaching out to thank him for his instrumental help. That's when he realized the impact of his answer. He reported being very appreciative of Susan's family, who sent him a thank you note. Jeremy Simon ultimately changed his plea to guilty. He was given 4.5 years as part of a drug offender sentencing alternative, which meant he would likely serve half his sentence in prison and half on probation as long as he followed other conditions, including participating in substance abuse treatment. Abraham Shakespeare. 39-year-old Abraham Shakespeare got the shock of his life when he won the $30 million jackpot in Florida, having purchased the winning ticket at a Town Star convenience store in the city of Frostproof on November 15, 2006. He had stopped by the convenience store while heading to Miami with a co-worker, Michael Ford, who asked him if he wanted a drink. Abraham instead handed him $2 and asked him to purchase 2 lottery tickets for him. Following his mind-blowing win, Abraham opted to take a one-time lump sum of $17 million. He left his neighborhood of Lakeland, Florida, and moved into a gated community, having purchased a home worth $1 million. By all accounts, he was a savvy spender. His only other major purchases were a new car, a Nissan Altima, and a Rolex watch, which he picked up at a pawn shop. One thing that Abraham noted after his lottery win was that friends, colleagues, and acquaintances would often approach him to ask for favors in the form of money. He told his brother, quote, "I'd have been better off broke." Similarly, he told a childhood friend, "I thought all these people were my friends, but then I realized all they want is just money." One such friend was a woman named Doris Donegan D.D. Moore, who launched a business with Abraham named Abraham Shakespeare LLC in the latter half of 2009. She gave herself full control of the firm's funds and would go on to withdraw $1 million and buy herself numerous luxury vehicles before taking a holiday. Later, she claimed the money was a gift from her business partner. Abraham was reported missing on November 9, 2009, months after he had last spoken to his family in April, and 3 years after winning the lottery. The reason his loved ones delayed filing a report was that they believed and hoped that he had taken his money and was living somewhere in the Caribbean. Soon, news broke that Abraham was missing, and armchair detectives who frequented the Web Sleuths forums learned of the story and began their own investigation. A woman named Cindy Parrott, who used the name Sleuthster on the site, was one of the many people who took a special interest in the case. Trisha Griffith, the woman who owns the website, recalled, quote, "Sleuthster, man, she's like a dog with a bone. There was no stopping her." Cindy told news outlets, "At first, I thought maybe he did just go off and was on some tropical island drinking a margarita, but then as I delved into it, I discovered that he had a small child and he was close to his mother. He didn't seem like a man who would just take off." While digging deeper into the case, Web Sleuths users discovered that D.D. Moore's company, American Medical Professionals, was now the owner of Abraham's $1 million home. Cindy observed, "She's posting pictures inside the home, living it up. It started raising eyebrows, and we really started focusing on D.D. Moore at that point." Around the same time, former Polk County Detective David Clark caught wind of the online forum. He stated that he was impressed with their work. Their findings would have required law enforcement to request a subpoena, which would have slowed down the investigation. But these armchair detectives were already multiple steps ahead. He later credited the forum users with being instrumental in the case, adding, "Some of the stuff they uncovered was extremely helpful to us." Before long, D.D. Moore then started posting on the forum. She claimed that she was in contact with Abraham and denied being involved in his disappearance. In real life, she told investigators that Abraham had opted to leave town and had gone to Orlando, Texas, Jamaica, or Puerto Rico, or was sick in the hospital. She also said that he'd complained about people always asking for money and that she'd helped him leave town. She admitted that she had purchased his home for over $660,000, and on top of that, an additional $185,000 in debt that people owed him. However, investigators noted that they could find no paper trail to support these claims. Authorities would later observe that she used Abraham's mobile phone to pose as him, sending text messages to friends and family, but when asked questions that she didn't know the answer to, she wouldn't reply. The way the texts were written caused suspicion among loved ones too, because Abraham was illiterate. Moore was later found to have offered his ex-girlfriend and the mother of his child $200,000 if she said that Abraham dropped by one night. In January of 2010, the Orlando Sentinel reported that she was living in Abraham's former home. His family and friends suspected that she had taken the last of his earnings and had been involved in his disappearance. In January of 2010, following a tip-off, the police searched the back garden of Moore's boyfriend's home, where they discovered Abraham's body buried under 9 feet of dirt and a newly constructed concrete slab. He was just 42 at the time of his murder. Investigators believe he died between April 6th and 7th at the home, which was located in Plant City. When Moore was confronted with this discovery, she blamed everybody but herself. Drug dealers, a lawyer, even her 14-year-old son. She later claimed to have killed him in self-defense. As the authorities investigated Moore's background further, they discovered that she'd once staged a scene to fraudulently keep a vehicle that was close to being repossessed. She had someone store the car in a garage and pretended to have been kidnapped, carjacked, and sexually assaulted, even submitting to a rape exam. It was alleged that she taped her own wrists and threw herself from a moving vehicle as part of the stunt. When the fabrication was uncovered, she pleaded no contest and was given probation. Moore was taken into custody on February 2nd, 2010, in connection with the murder, and her bond was set at $1 million. The police discovered that she'd tried to convince someone she knew to dig the body back up and move it about 1 week after the murder. She was charged with first-degree murder on February 19th, 2010. On December 10th, 2012, Moore was convicted of the charge and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. She was additionally given 25 years minimum for possessing a gun in the course of a violent felony. In 2023, Moore made headlines again when she started petitioning for a new trial, claiming that her original attorney made mistakes and put on no defense. Despite having written an apology note to Abraham's family following her conviction, in which she said, "I regret my actions," she now claims that she is innocent. She alleges that there was DNA evidence that could have cleared her name, which was never put forward during the trial. She pointed the finger at Greg Smith, a key witness who testified at her trial, and claimed that Abraham was having an affair with his wife, and therefore he had a stronger motive to murder him. She added that there was a witness who could corroborate her story. However, she then found out that this supposed witness had passed away. The judge ultimately denied her request for a new trial. And there you have the facts. Please leave a comment down below with your own thoughts and reactions, and remember to like this video and subscribe to support the channel. Thank you for watching. Stay alert, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.